Now if you remember that oil hole, I've pretty much filled the cross box with oil, I think. Difficult to know. I've used a certain amount. That's a British standard certain amount, not a metric certain amount. For how much, I haven't really got a clue. Anyway, I've put a pad over the hole, just a piece of tape really, and then a cable tie. There is some dripping, and at the moment I'm catching that on a pad there. Not too much dripping overnight. Previously you can see the stain before I put the pad on. So at some stage, maybe not, maybe as a second project, obviously I do need to dismantle the crossbox cover to put a new gasket on, but there is a risk with that because I've got to get out this pin that holds that drive wheel on, that pulley, and in doing so there is a slight risk of cracking the casting of the shaft, and that would probably terminate this project, turning this into a projector. So I'm thinking of just running a show or two with a few minutes of film when it's all finished, and then thinking of that as a separate project so I don't have to keep checking the oil leak and adding absorbent pads and stuff. So that's the plan. Now you'll notice that there is a film on the projector, and the reason that I was puzzled about the whole thing apparently being designed to go backwards was that normally the intermittent sprocket on a right hand machine is, well, normally the intermittent sprocket is immediately underneath the gate. This time we have a roller which can be moved to change the framing. Now I hadn't quite got my head around how that was going to work. When I finally did, when I had to come to thread the machine, it became evident that because the film goes over there first and then goes up onto the sprocket has to turn the other way to normal. So the sprocket is turning clockwise, whereas normally the intermittent sprocket will turn counterclockwise. I think I got that all right. Anyway, at the end of the day, once I'd figured that, it was a bit of head scratching. And then there's also, luckily, there is a video on YouTube that shows someone using an original DeVry suitcase projector in operation with the film threading shown reasonably clearly. And I also, at some point, I had spied a patent drawing from something from DeVry. So, and I needed those things because it is a bit of a head scratcher, and it's yeah, a bit strange, a bit quirky, but it works. The thing that puzzles me a little is the feed spool is here on the outside, which means when it was in its suitcase, you fed the film through, and then to attach it to the rear spool, you had to go fiddling around inside here, which you wouldn't have been able to do with the large film spool on. So I guess, unless I'm missing something here, I guess that you put the film on the table, threaded it, attached it to the take-up spool, and then put the full spool on the spindle. That would work. It's a little awkward, that would work. Or, unless there's some obvious way in which it was easy to access this, and I'm not really getting it. But anyway, I've put the shutter on. It's probably in roughly the right position. In other words, it's screwed onto the shaft, I think, in the right position. It's necessary that this blade, what we call the cover blade, as you probably know if you're watching this, covers the lens at the period of the film being pulled down, so you don't see streakiness and raining on the screen. The other two blades are called non-flick blades, and they reduce the flicker, because if you only have one blade, you've got an unequal amount of light. You've got all of that area being illuminated and then this area dark, and that causes a nasty flicker. And what you do to reduce the flicker is increase the flicker rate and give a slightly more equal arrangement. So you've got dark light, dark light, dark light. So it's non-intuitive. You can understand why it took them quite a few years to get this organised at the beginning, because if you run a film without a shutter, it's streaky, but there's no flicker. If you then add the necessary cover blade to reduce the streakiness or eliminate the streakiness, then it introduces flicker. So you've added a blade which introduces flicker. The way you've got to get rid of that flicker is to add more blades, which obviously is counterintuitive, and it took several years for people to work this out. We have a 3-bladed shutter, so when we're running at 16 frames a second, that's 48 obscurations per second. So we show each frame 3 times, 1, 2, 3, move on to the next one, 1, 2, 3. This is all basic, I'm sure. Pretty much everyone watching this is going to know this, but just in case there's someone who doesn't. So that's the shutter, and this has to be in sync or in phase with the pull down. I think I've got it in more or less the right place, but there's a little bit of adjustment on these screws, so it might need adjusting. It's also flopping about a bit on the shaft, and I suspect that's because the screw that holds it onto the shaft, the head's pretty much damaged, and to get it on there properly I might have to put a new screw in there. Yeah, it's going to have to deal with that, I think, before the next stage. So that's the next job to do, and then I think today we can actually run it and see if it will actually, see if that motor and the drive belt, the sloppy old drive belt, at the moment I've got it in a cross position from an experiment. I need to get that back into its standard position, and see if the whole thing works.
I'm not saying it's perfect, far from it, but it works. God be praised, it works, doesn't it? You can see that. You know, it's a quite extraordinary feeling.
This is real, but with a bit of hindsight. Anyway, DeVry made the projector mechanism, I've just strapped all these bits to it, but it does work, as you can see. Shutter needs a little bit of adjustment out of phase. What you were looking at was a 1970s TV ad or something for a vacuum cleaner, evidently. There's a lot of light spill, more than I expected. That's because it is a very bright light, and I'm going to have to think about that. But also we were watching it with some lights on, and the projected image finally will be a long way away from the projector. Just need to have a look, do some experiments in a room setting and just see the best way to cure that light spill problem. It didn't want to start, it was slipping. The belt is too loose. I think I need a little belt tensioning stroke stabilising roller on there, and then it should start to its own accord, I think, failing out a bit of a flick of the main pulley wheel and away it goes. It didn't seem to be slipping during projection as far as I could tell. All sounded consistent, looked consistent on the screen. So far so good. The film you saw, of course, had a soundtrack, which you see it on the left there. And also was shot for television, so 25 pictures a second, and we were showing it maybe 16 or so. That was the speed that we'll be showing original silent films on the projector, so that's why it looked a bit in slow motion, but seemed to be okay. Might be some slight vibration of the image, but I think it's reasonable. This catch that secures the pressure plate, if you like, back of the gate. It's got a shape to it, and I was assuming that was so it clears that screw. But now I think it might be intended to be straight and flat and actually stop on the screw. That's because with that bend, it's when the gate's closed, it's putting too much pressure. I'm going to have a look at that video of the machine that's on YouTube and see if I can work out whether that's also got this shaped hook. But failing that, I've kind of calculated that if I flatten that out, it will take the pressure off, and the roller underneath that does the framing is not rolling very easily, very freely. It moves, but it's not rolling freely, and that's not going to help either, so I need to lubricate that further. And now I think perhaps we'll have one more test and see whether that's made a difference to that particular problem.